Hi, Taylor T. Carlson here, and if you know me, you know I'll never get tired of the music of Ronnie James Dio. May he rest in peace. Over the last few years, there have been some deluxe editions of certain Dio albums. Initially, they'd been covering the ones that were released in the 80s, back in the heyday. But more recently, we've actually gotten some deluxe editions of the later Dio albums that were released in like the 90s through the early mid-2000s, which were the latter few releases of Ronnie James Dio's career. So I'm going to go through and show these off. They've all been reissued in digibooks, and each one has a bonus disc. So I'll talk a little about each one of these releases and if I recommend these or not. The albums you get in here, the albums that were released as part of this series are Angry Machines, Magica, Killing the Dragon, and Master of the Moon, which was the band Dio's final album. So we'll start out with the Angry Machines reissue. Back cover's honestly kind of generic and boring looking. I wish they'd done like anything else with that. One thing you'll notice that's really disappointing about this one is it does not include the Japanese bonus track God Hates Heavy Metal. So that's a huge disappointment right there. And all of the live recordings are actually the same recordings from Inferno Last and Live, although they cut out like one of the Rainbow songs to make it fit on one CD, and they stupidly added a fade between the songs for no reason, which makes no sense with live material. Here's the inner gatefold, and like I said, these are digibooks, so they've got assorted art and lyrics printed in here. Sadly, not really any photos or anything really comprehensive, no new essays or anything like that. I put the shrink wrap pipe sticker right there. So this one, I'm going to have to say, don't buy this. If you don't already own the album, I mean, you might as well get it, but it doesn't have the Japanese bonus track, and you already own these live songs on Inferno Last and Live if you're a fan. Next up we have Magica, which was Ronnie James Dio's classic concept album, which has quite the crazy story to it. I'm not going to try to decipher that story or talk about it here. That can be a story for another day. Bonus disc on this one has tracks that were recorded in 2001 on the Magica tour. Plus it has the studio bonus track Electra and the studio bonus track Magica Story, which is actually a pretty lengthy spoken word piece. Here's the opening inner gatefold. Got the hype sticker right there. Again, you got lyrics and some pretty nice art to go along with it. This one at least seems like a little more effort went into it because you got those live tracks here, and the artwork at least uses a slightly less generic font than the previous album, so that's a step in the right direction. Not to mention I've always kind of liked the artwork on this album anyhow. Next up we have Killing the Dragon. This actually uses different art from the earlier released issue of the album. It has a bonus disc that was recorded in 2002, 2003 on the tour that has a handful of live cuts. Here's the inner gatefold. I put the hype sticker there. A lot of cool artwork and even a nice photograph there. That's the original album artwork right there. I'm at least glad they included that in some shape or form. Of course, Dio always worked with really great musicians, and this album was no exception to that rule. You do get 6 live tracks on the bonus disc, so that's pretty nice. And then lastly, we have Master of the Moon. Unfortunately, this one goes back to using a very generic font, very plain looking back, no photos or anything. There are some live cuts that were recorded on the tour for the album. The last song on here, which is called Prisoner of Paradise, is actually a studio track, but they don't bother mentioning that on here, which seems kind of lazy to me. Then you go through once again, and you've got quotes and excerpts and artwork. I do love this artwork here. Ronnie James Dio always hooked up with people who can provide really good art, and this album was no exception. So like I said, you get some live cuts plus a studio bonus on here. Overall, I'm pretty happy with these reissues, but they do seem a little lazy and rushed in a way. I mean, why do they only have like a handful of live cuts? I mean, didn't they record like whole live performances that they could easily fit onto a CD. I mean, even if they had to cut like a few tracks and moments here and there to make them fit. But these are almost more like EP discs, with the exception of Magica, which has quite a bit more songs, plus those 2 studio bonus tracks, one of which is a lengthy spoken word excerpt. If you don't already own any of these albums, I would say these are the versions to buy, but at the same time, if you are a Dio fan and you already own the older CDs, I don't know that there's really any reason to rush out and get these unless you're a completist and you want to have every little thing. So, a modest recommendation to these, but if you already own older reissues, I don't know that you should really rush out and buy them. Are you a Dio fan? What's your favorite song and album? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to my channel for more content because I'm always posting new videos. And make sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. See you next time.